My name's Amon Tobin. I'm a music producer, artist, and you're in my studio in Highland Park in LA. I've been recording music, I guess, for the last 20 years or so, under my own name, and I've just started a new label called No Mark, which is a bit of a vehicle for my own productions, and I've released a few different aliases that I've been working on for the last 8 years. I went a bit quiet for the last few years as I sort of tried to develop these different lanes to work within different types of music that I was interested in, to try and explore them as much as I could. And I ended up with some self-contained projects, which I've now decided to release over the next couple of years on this label, No Mark. I'm interested in exploring and learning about sound and music, and the music that I make tends to be, I guess, what's left after that. So I tend to just sort of navigate my own interests and see where they go, rather than try and produce other people. I have done in the past a lot of experiments with synthesis, different types of synthesis, and building my own instruments sometimes. So a whole range of different approaches to trying, to make sound and make music. I feel I took my interest in sampling as far as I could take it. I did several records based on the idea of recontextualizing sound and reordering sound, and my interest shifted a little bit into first recording sound, going out in the field and experimenting with recorded sound, and then into synthesizing those recordings and making records that were entirely based on synthesized versions of field recordings. And now I'm actually kind of interested in just using very familiar sounds, things like the mellotron and simple waveforms in old machines like I have around me. Well, not all around me, but in some places. Things that are less of a focus on the origin of whatever it is that I'm manipulating, and more about just the feeling of the music itself in the end. At the moment, I'm kind of fascinated by imperfections in sound and arrangement. I worked a long time really hard to be quite specific about what I was doing, and in a very sort of ordered, sort of determined way. And that was very satisfying, but at the same time, it choked a little bit of life and spontaneity out of what I was doing. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is let some of that inaccuracy back into my process. I spent most of my life working at night, and that's just because people don't interrupt you as much. You get less phone calls and less emails to answer. So now I'm trying to work during the day, which is really difficult. But what I've done is I've created a nighttime environment, sort of perpetual nighttime environment in here, so it always feels familiar to me. I use Cubase, obviously, as my main hub to bring everything together. I use Kima, which is kind of like a sound design language. I collect outboard and DSP-based tools, and I try and take what I need from those different things to make what it is that I'm after. It's very much a transparent process for me at that point. I need something that's not getting in the way, right? Because I'm pretty sure that anybody that does anything creative, all we really want to do is get whatever's in our head out as literally as possible. So all of the interfaces in between can be obstacles, or they can be to your benefit as well, depending on how you use it. But what I like about working with Cubase is that it doesn't present a barrier. It facilitates what I'm trying to do. So the way Cubase supports my workflow is it basically provides a bed onto which I can build things very quickly, so I don't get caught up in a sort of stagnant process where I'm fighting with my interface all the time. I'm able to get to places I need to be very quickly to see if they work before I invest too much time and energy into exploring an idea. Right? I think that's really important when you're not playing actual instruments, when you're working in an electronic environment. You can't always try things out instantly like you could with maybe a traditional instrument. You have to sort of see things through a few different stages. And so it's really important to be able to do that without taking 3 weeks to get there, and to see if an idea is even worth exploring further or worth seeing to fulfillment. And I'm really interested in the creative aspect of music. So I need something as transparent as possible, really, something that is really not a barrier between whatever I'm feeling and whatever I want to try and express, right? And so there's an immediacy to a lot of the tools in Cubase, which you can either decide to explore very, very deeply, or you can take them at a very superficial level and they'll just do a job very efficiently. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that there are levels of depth that you can explore if you need to, and if you don't need to, you don't have to wade through them in order to get to where you want to be. So that's really important, I think, for any tool. I'll use Cubase to collect all of my raw material and then try and give it form inside that area. With whatever tools are available inside. And I know I can trust that I will be able to get there within Cubase with a raw sound from somewhere else. So it gives me a lot of confidence, basically, to start out with an approximated idea for a sound, or a musical phrase or something that I can then try and learn. Often I'll just record like a tape recorder to begin with, and there are other things which I want to go through Cubase and back out and then back in again. So I'm able to integrate these things quite nicely through whatever interfaces I'm using to get in and out of the machine. In the end, it's an editing station and a processing station for me, because a lot of the stuff that I do is about tiny edits and small adjustments to sounds. MIDI is also really important to me as well. The way it handles MIDI has always been great. Lots of different ways of controlling expression, different types of expression, and it integrates well with controllers that have a range of movement too. I use a controller called a Continuum, which has things working on X-axis and the Y-axis and the Z-axis as well. And if you're able to automate all of those aspects of your sound in a MIDI controller independently, it gives you just a little bit of more control too. So you can be very free and record things, but you can also go in and zoom in and try and fix particular aspects of any given CC that you want to try and change. Instruments inform you to some degree, then they can often help you get somewhere that maybe you hadn't imagined before, or maybe you hadn't fully imagined before. So for me, I'll have a very fleshed out idea of what I want to do with a song or a track or whatever you want to call it. But I'll try nowadays to be less militant about sticking to that, and I'll try and be more flexible and try and be more intuitive about where it's going. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do when is usually something quite simple. All the complexity is in the ideas that you have and how you execute them, and the decisions that you're making, the creative decisions that you're making to leave things in or take things out, how to process things, when to leave things alone. There's a big part of that. It's a speed thing, being able to get to the end of an idea as a sketch before you flesh it out, right? And then if it's worth pursuing as a sketch, if it's working in principle, then you can go back and really fine-tune it and really dive in and do what you need to realize it. I think that my life's been made infinitely easier by Cubase, and I owe a lot to it. I really do.